Okay, well, we're back again, and you can see by my overhead here that's where I got my little for by him. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things are created by him and for him, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Now, not only is our God the Creator God, but our God is also a personal Father God. And he said in the scriptures, Psalm 1:16, I love the Lord because he hears my voice and my supplications, because he has inclined his ear to me. Therefore I shall call upon him as long as I live. So he's not afar off. He's right here with us. He loves us to be calling him Daddy, to be coming to him with our supplications. I had the weekend, nice Thanksgiving weekend with my children and my little grandson, just, Grandma, I need this. Grandma, I need this. And it just delights my heart. And I know that that's the way that God feels about us when we come to him with our needs and our prayers and our wants, because he delights in his children. And so we need to delight in him. So let's go ahead and learn more about his creation as we are working with our, lost my marker, we're working with our reciprocal trigonometric functions, still on lesson 41 of our Saxon Advanced Math. So the first one I want to do with you today is 2/3 cosecant of a negative 3 pi over 4. We're not usually quite as familiar with our radians as we are with our degrees. Secant 11 pi over 4. This is example 2 in our lesson 41 of our advanced math. So we're going to do this one first. And on this one, remember, the first thing we want to do is come up with what our unit circle is going to place this, because we don't use our calculators when we don't have to. This one is at negative 3 pi over 4. Remember, this is a pi over here on your unit circle. So we're going to come in the negative direction, and we're going to wind up at the 45 degree in the third quadrant. And that's going to be, since we have a cosecant is a 1 over the sine. Remember, they switched the letter. So 1 over the sine of, we could call this negative 135 degrees. But the important thing about it is that it is a 45 degree angle in the third quadrant. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and put our 2/3 over here, and we'll just take care of that in a minute. Now we can simplify this one. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Okay, we're going to simplify this one to make it 2/3, and the sine of the 45 degrees is going to be the square root of 2 over 2, and that's going to be down, so it will be negative. So that's going to be 1 over the square root of 2 over 2 negative. And then, of course, when I divide by a fraction, I'm going to flip and multiply, which is going to make that 2/3 times, when I flip this over, it's going to be 2 over square root of 2 negative. And when I put those together, I'm going to get a negative 4 over 3 square root of 2. Not in the correct form, but when we multiply by square root of 2 over square root of 2, then our 2 down here will cancel part of our 2 there. We'll end up with a negative 2 square root of 2 over 3. Okay, now that's just, all of that was just for this first one over here. So now we're going to move over a little bit. Okay, and we're come over here to this part of the board, and we're looking at what is the negative secant of 11 pi over 4. Again, we need another little unit circle here. So negative 11 pi over 4 is more than one whole trip around. Okay, so remember that 8 pi over 4 is a 2 pi, and a 2 pi is one trip around. So we're going to be able to throw away that 8 pi over 4, and we take it away from our 11 pi over 4. So we're really seeing this is the same thing as negative the secant of 3 pi over 4. Well, 3 pi over 4 is going to be right here, the 45 degree in the second quadrant. The secant is 1 over the cosine. So we're going to have negative 1 over the cosine. And that's just a 45 degree angle. We could call it 135 because it's positive. And then we're going to say, okay, well, that's going to be square root of 2 over 2 again. So negative 1 over square root of 2 over 2. But since it's in the second quadrant, that is also negative. So we end up with a negative and a negative. So that's going to wind up being 1 over square root of 2 over 2. We divide to flip, and we get 2 over square root of 2, which when we multiply to get it in the proper form is 2 square root of 2 over 2, or just the square root of 2. So when I come over here and I say, all right, I already took care of my minus. This is now going to be a square root of 2. Yes, that's an equal sign. Square root of 2. Okay? Now, when I'm looking at that, can you see that? Is it 2? Okay, so now when I'm looking at that, I've got to get a common denominator. So I'm going to have 3 over 3. So now I have a negative 2, the square root of 2 over 3, plus a 3 square root of 2 over 3, which is going to wind up just giving me a square root of 2 over 3. And that does it.